Is your family connected? I mean, really connected? What if you could unwrap 4 gifts that would connect your family for life? And what if you could build a trusting foundation that would have everything to do with how you listen to one another, how you respect one another, how you support, and how you celebrate one another? Today, we're going to unwrap these 4 gifts together. And I want you to be aware that the 4 gifts will be at the heartbeat of everything I do, and it will be the basis of this show. Hi, my name is Cheryl Bassett, and this is the official launch of the Kitchen Table Conversation Show, and it's part of the Edge Network. So I'm going to take a pause right here because it's really important. I want to give a shout out to Erin Strayer, who is the founder of the Edge Network and creator, and she is also has her own show that she hosts called the Erin Strayer Show. Erin is such a beautiful heart. She has been so passionate about my journey. She's always supporting me, and she's always been supporting my dreams. So thank you, Erin. And anyone who knows me knows that this has been a dream of mine for a really long, sometimes too long, but a really long time. This has been a dream of mine to have this show. So after my work was recognized for connecting families as one of the next best brilliant ideas for humanity, it unleashed this amazing vision, and it launched a journey for me. And that journey has led me here in this moment to share with you. Today, for our very first show, we're going to flip the script. So what do I mean by that? What I mean is that every show moving forward, I will be the host. But today we have Layne Myers, who's going to come on, and I'm so excited to have her. She's going to interview me for this very first show. I love having her here for this very special moment. What I'm going to do now is I want to read a little bit of Sunny's bio, and I want to read it because I want to make sure I get it right. But just know that Sunny has like this amazing place in my heart, and really no script is required. But here's a little bit about her. Layne Myers is an Emmy award-winning journalist, professional speaker, narrator, and speaking coach. She started out as an intern on the Today Show in New York City, and she worked on stories with Katie Couric. She was in the United Nations on shows, and she also has interviewed some really famous people, everyone from Jimmy Fallon to Barack Obama to Donald Trump. She also anchored the news for several years and won the Emmy for her news coverage. She was voted best of the best news anchor for viewers, and she also had an award-winning weekly series called Someone You Should Know. She highlighted people who were out making a difference. And I have to admit, when I read that part of her bio, I thought, well, of course she was. Because if you know Sunny, she's always out making a difference. And she's so passionate about helping others to do the same. So I want to bring her on. And I want you to know that she shines just as brightly as her name. So please help me welcome to the show, for the very first show, Layne Myers.
Hello, Cheryl. What a generous introduction. And I just want you and everyone watching and listening to know how honored I feel that I got to meet you. And from the moment that we talked and you explained a little bit about your message, I just felt like this is something that everyone needs to hear, not only in this country, but around the world. We hear from the time we're in kindergarten, make the world a better place. You want to do something that helps other people. And Cheryl, I know that your message really will and already is doing that for many families. And I just feel like it's absolutely, it rings true to my heart, and it does to everyone who listens. And you're today going to talk about 4 gifts that go along with this message, and each one is so powerful, and it will change your life and your family. And I remember we met because of a little guest spot I did on our friend Erin Strayer's show. Who, like you just said, is such a force for good. And she's one of the most unselfish people I have ever met. She wants everyone to succeed. And she's just such a great example of women in business and how we can lift each other. And I didn't think I was going to quote this, but there's this Quaker proverb, maybe you've heard of it. It says, "Ye lift me and I lift thee and we'll ascend together."
Ah,
And
I love
yeah,
it.
I
I
love that idea. And she is like that. You are like that. I could go on, but I won't. Let's get to your message. And anyway, so anyone listening live or in the future, you're in for a treat and you're in for a message that will surely change your life if you apply it in your family's life. So, Cheryl, let's
Thank
talk about, like all superheroes, they have an origin story. Let's go back, what, 20 years? What?
Gosh, at least, yeah, at least 20 years. Yeah.
Okay, so about 20 years, and you were experiencing something that unfortunately many people in America and around the world have, and you were experiencing possibly losing your home, right?
Mhm.
And you're a
Mhm.
single mom of two little boys that you love more than anything, and you're feeling really worried. Can you take us there?
Yeah. So, and I'm even going to take you back just a little bit further than that, because in some ways, by the time that we got to that point where we were in this, what I think most would consider a crisis of losing our home, we had our first, what I'm going to deem our first official family meeting back when the boys were even younger. And that first meeting was because I had, which I'm not proud of, but I had an emotional meltdown over one of my sons asking for a tube of chapstick,
Mm.
which seems ridiculous now, but it was such a defining moment for us. And the good thing is that wasn't my norm, but it was like they came in the door and it's like, we need this and we need that. And I need shoes and I need a t-shirt. And, I had just spent the whole morning trying to figure out how I was going to, make everything balanced. And then Brian's last comment was, oh yeah. And by the way, can you take me to the store because I need a tube of chapstick? And that was, my tipping point. And, poor Brian was left speechless after I, said, we don't need a tube of chapstick. So it's a joke to this day. Whenever I even start to get upset, which is very rare, the boys will say, this isn't going to be a chapstick moment, is it? So we laugh about it, but the truth is that night we sat down and we had our first official family meeting. And that's what really all this journey has been about. I didn't know in that moment that was the start of it, but that was the start of it. And from that, we sat down and I thought I was going to impart all my wisdom onto my children. I was going to straighten them out and we were all going to be on the same page. And what I found out really quickly was they had a lot to share and I had a lot to learn. So we took this beautiful journey together. So it was a few years later when we had the house situation happen.
Yeah.
And so it's funny because people will say, how did you feel in that moment? And I'm like, we were okay. Because we had been meeting as a family, we had been talking about what it meant to support each other and trust one another. And, we already knew that no matter what storm we were in the middle of, the house or whatever it was, that we were a team. And that really, I think, is a flip of the message. Like so many people go through a crisis and then come out of it, the other side saying we got stronger together. And we did, but we went into it really strong. We went into it unified. And I think I wish everyone to have, a chapstick moment in some ways that really creates that defining where you go, man, we need to meet as a family and we need to know what it means to communicate and to really connect. So that was the start of it.
Yes. And the fact that this is something that has unfortunately broken up many families, many marriages, losing a home, having financial difficulties. And the fact that it did not shake your confidence too much and that it didn't make you all yell at each other. In fact, it was really unusual for that to ever happen.
Mm-hmm.
And it was because of the work that you did beforehand. And I think that's partly what makes your message unique and so special is you can build something before the storm comes, right?
Absolutely. It's really about trust. And I do this thing when I get a chance to speak, but I have everybody stand up and then sit down with some intensity into their chair. And the funny thing is that, we all do that. We stand up and we sit down and nobody thinks, gee, I wonder if this chair was made right, or I wonder who made this chair. We trust that chair is there to support us. And that same level of trust is the same level of trust you should have with your family. You should know that no matter what you're going through, that you're going to be there to support one another. And when you can get to that point, then it doesn't really matter what storm you're weathering. Right. And so that was that was really the beauty in it. And we did come out of all of it, obviously stronger, but we went into it with that strength as well and that trust.
Really strong. Okay, well, great. Well, can you walk us through what helped you build that foundation?
Yeah. So we started these family meetings, and of course they evolved over time, and every Sunday night at 7 was our time. And I will just tell parents, like, your kids are going to give you some grief sometimes. I will say this, my son David sort of enjoyed them, right? My son Brian did not. And so when I say,
right, David's younger,
Brian,
older.
Yeah, Brian's actually the older one.
Okay.
So Brian's older, David was younger. So Brian would roll his eyes, and I would be like, that's fine, roll your eyes, and when you're done, get your butt to the table, because we're going to have a family meeting. And once we got started, he was fine, and we would engage and whatever. But to this day, we still connect. I mean, my kids reach out to me, and we have such an amazing, and they have families of their own now. I mean, they're 28 and 30 years old. So this has been years ago. So that really was the start of it. We sat down and we had this meeting that evolved, and I had these initial things I wanted to, but the kids contributed in. And so out of that came this, which is now a family meeting toolkit, but an agenda, right, that we could tap into. And the agenda has everything on it, from like a random act of kindness and what we're thankful for. And we talked about setting goals and how we could support one another. And we had SMART goals, and then we had our finances were in there so that we could plan ahead of time. All of those things were weaved into this beautiful agenda that we ended up creating. And, I want to make this one point, because one of the things is sometimes I've had when other families have used it, they've said, well, we got together and we didn't have a random act of kindness. And the one thing I want to say is that when you keep the consistency of the agenda, what happens is that because you talk about random acts of kindness, even though you may not have one every single time, it starts to become your front awareness of it, right? So you start to see them. And it's not uncommon for my kids still to say, hey, I got to do a random act of kindness, or I saw a random act of kindness that happened today and we share it, or a favorite quote or whatever. So all those things that we did consistently, even though maybe every week we didn't have a random act or we didn't have a quote that we brought to the meeting, they're so much in our awareness now. And it had everything to do not about that meeting time we sat at the table, but how we showed up in life. It became less about the hour we spent and more about how we spent the rest of the hours that we weren't at that table.
Yeah. We'll stop you right there, because there's so many wonderful things that we could unpack from what you said. But I think what a gift, Cheryl, that you gave your sons at the outlook of life. So they are actually looking for the good. They're looking for people who are expressing love and kindness and support. Not only are they trying to do it themselves, I'm sure, but instead of thinking, oh man, I have to go to work, blah, 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 I feel like their whole lens has been shaped positively because of the culture of your family. And this meeting was really the catalyst for that culture, it sounds like. And do you still meet with them, by the way?
So here's a funny story. So no, we don't. We should maybe, but
no, it's okay.
But when we do get together, and the other thing too is that I will say this too, that when you meet as a family consistently for a while, what ends up happening is it just, the whole connection and conversation gets easier. And so sometimes when you're not in a meeting, it's like, I know the signs. I know when Brian calls me, I can tell in 2 seconds by the tone in his voice that he wants to talk, and David's somebody that would come home from school and I would go, so how was your day? And most parents would love this, right? But he said, well, at 8:00 we did this. And at 8:05 we did this. And then at 8:15 we went to, and like, 15 minutes later, I'm thinking, oh my God, we're not even out of third period yet. Like, this is going to be the long, but how many parents would love to have their kids come home and just share? And it's because we communicated and we connected. But what I wanted to go back to your point of what you were asking, do we still meet? My son went off to college, David, and he was in at Ohio State in the Newark branch. And so it was Sunday night. It was like 6:55. I wasn't really looking at the time, but I remember it now because I called him and I said, "Hey, what are you doing?" He goes, "Well, it's almost 7 o'clock. What do you think I'm doing?" Because Sunday night at 7 was our time. And I said, "Well, I don't know." And he goes, "Mom," he goes, "my roommates and I get together every Sunday night at 7." And they didn't have our full agenda, but they connected and they talked about their week ahead and what they were doing and how they could support one another and whatever. And I thought that was like one of those moments where you go, man, I had no idea, like the impact. So that's why I say it has less to do about that hour that you're going to spend now and everything to do about how it's going to literally leave an impact in their life and your life, and probably the next generation. So.
Wow. Kudos to you,
Yeah.
Mom. Congratulations. That is so great that they're obviously carrying on this great tradition. Okay. So let's get into it. You mentioned the agenda. You had lots of things on there.
I know there's a lot on there.
The calendar, finances, of course, act of kindness. And I think it's great, if some people have said, well, we didn't do any of those kind acts this week, that's okay because you're setting the expectation, right? You're setting the expectations of how to behave and how to live your life and what to look for. And so the process. So anyone implementing these, and we're going to talk about 4 gifts.
4 gifts, yeah.
4 gifts that are essential to success. It's going to get easier and easier, but it's a journey. So don't be discouraged. You didn't have it all in the beginning.
No.
Yeah. So which would you like to talk about first?
So, okay. So the 4 gifts, which are funny, but originally, and I think it's kind of interesting to kind of know this, but when I started with it, we called them rules and they were the 4 rules. And I didn't really like that because rules feel limiting. Right. So when we finally said, let's call them, and so this is sort of after we had our meetings, but we called them the 4 gifts because the 4 gifts empower you. They expand how you can live your life. Right. So we have these 4 gifts. So you can look at them as rules if that helps, but they're really 4 gifts that allow everybody to feel honored in the process and heard. And so the first gift is the gift of listening. And it seems pretty basic. And we did that with just the thought of disconnect to connect. And so for the first, we'd meet for about an hour, I would say most of the time. But that first half hour, we did get away, like no electronics, no anything involved in the meeting. Now, the second half, sometimes we brought them in because we might watch a video together or do something that somebody wanted to share that was, online. That's the world we live in. But that whole disconnect to connect was really about, the gift of listening and how when you really are listening to someone, it. And so we practice, like, what does that really mean when you're listening to someone? And we practice that repeating what somebody said and trying to understand. So it was, the first one was this gift of listening and turning off all the technology around us and respecting the fact that the person in front of you is more important than your cell phone.
I love that. By the way, you probably heard this. The famous speaker, Simon Sinek, he talks about human behavior and leadership.
That was one of the videos we watched on the second half when they got a little older. We loved it. It's the Simon Sinek. Yeah.
So great. But he was talking about how studies show now that if you are even holding this, you're even holding your smartphone in your hand while talking to someone, it sends a subliminal message to them that they are second in importance to your phone, that your phone is number 1. Even if it's on the table in front of you. And he said, I know this might sound silly, put it in your pocket. Put it away.
Get it out of here. There's a restaurant now that actually, I think it's Tuesdays, and I forget, there's a number of them, but they're having you where everybody agrees to put their cell phones in a book and they take it off the table, and their business on Tuesday nights has gone up dramatically because it's all about, and they get 20% off their bill if everyone at the table is willing to put their cell phone in the bucket.
Oh my goodness. I want to find out.
I know. How cool is that?
Great idea, this restaurant chain, because we are hearing that loneliness is an epidemic. It really is. And it affects your health and all aspects of your life. And we're trying to find connection through this. And you know what? Meaningful connection is not going to happen through our phones. It really needs, we really need to make eye contact and really be present with the people that we love. So I love that. And so with each one of your 4 gifts, you have just like a word is the gift, but then you have a little catchphrase.
Right. Sort of how you can unlock it or unwrap it, whatever you want to say, each one of these, right?
Okay.
So
you're unwrapping. That's right.
We're unwrapping this gift. So the second gift is the gift of respect.
Sorry. So number one is listen, and the catchphrase is disconnect to connect.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Then the second, thank you for that. The second one is the gift of respect. And what we do for that one is we have something, and this is fun. And this is fun when I do this in companies, but we have this little duck that it doesn't really quack. But we say, don't quack the duck. But this brings back childhood memories, right? So,
yeah.
Little yellow ducks. So we set those out on the table. And the whole concept is that the duck is the idea. So if somebody has an idea and shares, you can compliment it, you can build on it, you can ask questions about it. But what you cannot do is immediately shoot the duck or shoot down the idea, which it used to be shoot the duck, but we decided we didn't want to go around shooting things. But don't quack the duck is how we say it now. So, but when I put these out on tables, even in like a meeting situation in a company, and we set these out, there's a lot of duck quacking that goes on in the beginning of that meeting, right? Because people don't realize two things. One, how quick they are to shoot down somebody else's idea, but how sometimes they shoot down their own ideas. I mean, I've had people quack somebody who starts to share an idea and go, oh, you know what, that would never work. And they get quacked from somebody else and it was their idea. So, you know, here's a beautiful story about this. So David is definitely my big dreamer. David's there is no box lid, there is no box. And Brian is very much structure. So one day we're sitting there and David says, well, I would love it if we could put a helicopter landing pad on our roof. And of course, Brian immediately went, oh my God, like that's just like, that's just, we really have to sit and talk about you know. And so Brian got quacked. But here's the thing is that we had this amazing conversation about, well, David, why would you want to have that? Mm-hmm. I think, again, like, where did that come from? Why would that be important? You know, and we had this amazing conversation about what famous people could come and visit us and stay at our house, and where we could go, you know, in a short amount of time and get back before dinner. I mean, it was just like the mind of a child, right? But it was this beautiful thing that we did. And there's still stories that we share about that because we didn't quack. Now, did we put a helicopter landing pad on our roof? We did not. But man, I know. Well, maybe it's still coming. But but it was just fun, right? To have that conversation.
And Cheryl, how old were your boys at that time?
Yeah, so probably, you know, maybe 10 and 8 at that point. You know, I mean,
definitely age appropriate.
Yeah. Well, David probably would still say, David still thinks, you know, he'll say crazy stuff and Brian just goes, oh my God. So it still happens. But
I love that because you showed him you cared what he was thinking about and what was cool to him.
Mm-hmm. And trying to understand what made him think it. I think sometimes if you really want to understand where your kids are, and then the other side of this equation, Sunny, and you know this, but when somebody feels like they're not heard, if they feel like they keep offering ideas and they don't get heard or whatever, you know, eventually they just stop offering them. And I think sometimes it's really easy for kids, especially to kind of get dismissed with their ideas, right? So I think just allowing, it's just it's a safe place to just allow that to happen is beautiful. And your kids will have, honestly, I believe it's completely tied to self-esteem. How are they going to show up out in the world? If they feel like they get shot down at their own kitchen table with their own family, then, you know, how quick are they going to be to jump out in the world and share with others without concern of that as well?
Right. Even though I have heard these several times now, I'm actually taking notes because there's such great ideas and there's so much wisdom behind them that I feel like I get many new things every time I listen to that. So I love the fact that respect is about, and don't crack the duck. That's your catchphrase. Don't crack the duck. It's about allowing people to have a safe space to contribute what's important to them. And, you know, if we as parents or siblings or whatever, or spouses, I'm totally guilty of this. Okay. And when we, let's say, no, that would never work, or that's stupid, blah, 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 how do we expect them to feel confident to go out into the world and share their ideas in a board meeting or as an entrepreneur or in school? I mean, we have to model the behavior at home that we want them to treat others with, and also really nurture their budding confidence.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, I have a duck that sits out on my thing, and it's not uncommon for me to have a thought, start saying like my own self-doubt or something will creep in. I quack myself still. So, and there's nobody else in the room, and I quack myself.
Literally grab the duck and squeeze it.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, I love it.
Yeah, I like, oh, like, like I'm shooting down my own idea. It's a really good idea. Why am I already letting, you know, like I'm gonna give all my excuses why it's not going to work or why I can't do whatever. So I crack my back, and so.
Oh, way to walk your talk, Cheryl.
Way to walk the talk. Yes.
Good job. We've got, well, so far, we'll just list these really quick. So of the 4 gifts, number 1 is listening, and that's disconnect to connect. Number 2, respect. Don't quack the duck. Don't shoot people down. Just let them talk. Okay.
Yes.
Even if they say, I want a helicopter pad on the house, still let's talk. Okay. And you don't have to follow through. That's the point.
Yeah,
you need to listen.
You know, but sometimes the best ideas come from ideas that originally seem crazy, and they evolve and they change and they grow because of the input. And so what you end up with is really this amazing idea that's different than where it started, but you allowed the conversation to flow around it.
Right. So. And just one little real life example of this, I had a teacher in college who, you know, didn't make a huge salary, and he had a big family, and they had a family meeting, and his children said, Dad, and I really want to go to Hawaii. I want the whole family to go to Hawaii. And he was tempted to say, yeah, that's never going to happen on this salary. But he quieted that voice. He did not quack that duck. And he said, okay, how much money do you think that would be?
Yep.
How do you think we could earn that money? And you know what? Something miraculous happened. As a family, I don't even know what they did, but they did different little jobs and, you know, kind of almost like fundraisers.
Right.
Money earning, you know, jobs to get this. And I think it was 1.5 years later, maybe 2, the entire family went to Hawaii for several days. And it was this beautiful event. And, you know, even more than the beauty of Hawaii and that, I think his children learned something even more valuable, which is I can attain my goals.
Yeah.
Even if they seem
absolutely. Huge. Yeah. Even if they're big, right?
If they're big. Yeah. I think that's great. So don't quack that duck.
Don't quack that duck.
Yeah. Okay. What is gift number 3?
Gift number 3 is the gift of awareness. And gosh, we could spend a lot of time on this, but I think there's really a great way to illustrate the gift of awareness. But how we unlock that and unwrap that is what's something called live above the mark.
I love this so much.
Yeah, it's live above the mark. And so because here's what happens when we live above the mark, right? We take charge of our lives, we own it, we believe in ourselves. So that's when we're living above the mark. When we're below the mark, we're blaming someone else. We're justifying maybe why, we're quacking our duck. We're in denial, all those things, right? So, but only when you step up above the mark can you make a change in your life. And I think that the story I share around this, which isn't a long one, but it's a really profound one. When I was sharing this, and I remember David was 13. So this actually came on. I learned some of this at a seminar. I brought it home and I shared it with my family at our Sunday meeting. And David, who, again, I remember being 13 very distinctly. And I said, I think let's incorporate this into our meeting. What do you guys think? And I'm explaining to them what it means. And I said, so when you live above the mark and you take ownership of your life, you can make a change. When you're below and you're blaming someone or something, you're literally giving your power away to someone or something, right? And only when you step up and say, this is my life, I own it, can you actually make a change? So I'm looking at David and thinking, 13. I'm like, David, does that make sense to you? And I thought it was a really amazing thing until I heard his answer. And then I thought it was so amazing. Like I fell in love with it. And what he said was, he goes, Mom, he goes, I totally get it. What you're saying is like last night when we lost our baseball game, we all just sat around and blamed the umpire, but we never looked at ourselves. So tomorrow night, we won't play any better as a team than we did last night.
Wow.
That's what I said. I went, okay. And and to this day, I mean, this is something that we have absolutely brought forth. And the other day I was giving all my reasons why I hadn't, been working out as much and maybe eating quite as healthy as I wanted to and whatever. And right away, Brian's like, sounds like you're a little below the mark. I was like, I tell parents all the time, like the good news is your kids will get this. And the bad news is your kids will get this because
watch out.
Right. That's that authentic moment where you have to say, man, and your kids are always watching you, right? Like always. I mean, you may not think that you wear a superhero cape, but I promise you do because they're always watching. So living above the mark yourself is so important for your kids to see, but teaching them. And I remember one time Brian came home from school. I'll share this one last story on this, but Brian came home from school and he comes running in the door. And I said, how was your test? And he goes, he said, Mom, he said, it was the dumbest test. He started in, and I didn't say a word. And all of a sudden he stopped himself like midstream and he goes, however, given that I know that's how she likes the tests, maybe I should prepare for it differently next time.
Whoa.
Yeah. And he was probably like in 6th or 7th grade, but he realized he could blame. Sure, he could just say it was a stupid test. The teacher was, silly for what she did. But the truth is that how does that impact? What does that really do for him to take ownership of what he's going to do the next time he has a test? He's got another one coming.
Oh my goodness. I think this gift number 3, awareness and living above the mark is, well, they can all change the world, but I feel like this one especially, oh my goodness, if we all took more responsibility for our own attitude, our thoughts, our actions, I mean, really the world would be a better place. And I think about marriage, and I feel like so many marital problems that I'm aware of come from blaming our spouse.
Yeah.
You did this, you didn't do this. And I feel just from watching friends and family members and even, my own marriage, when I decide to change myself, that by far yields the most positive results because everybody gets lifted. When you stop doing this, pointing those fingers and you change yourself and you think, you know what, I need to get up earlier in the morning.
Yeah.
I need to not be in a rush. It's not my kid's fault. I need to take responsibility for this. It raises everybody. It raises everyone's mood, and it starts this positive wheel forward, and it's contagious. Don't you think?
Yeah. Yes. And there's a quote that came to mind that when you change the way you look at the world that you look at changes. And and I think it's just, what are we putting out there? Because one of my other favorite things to talk about is that, we're not going to get into all this today, but we're never going to solve a problem in the energy of the problem. We have to step into the energy of the solution.
Okay,
and the solution,
favorite things. Can you say it one more time? Say it slow.
Okay. So we can never, ever solve a problem in the energy of the problem.
Okay.
We can only solve a problem in the energy of the solution.
Right. Okay.
And so when we step out of that energy of blame and it's not my fault, it's their fault, whatever, we step into the solution. How do we get to be a part of the solution? And we change that energy, then the people that are the other side of that equation change with it most of the time. Right. So it starts with us. And yes, we could say, well, they should start it sometimes too. Like why do I always have to be the one? But it's just a choice you make about how you want to live your life. So
you know what? And guess what? Sometimes we have to be the ones to step up and be the bigger person. You know what? Let's get over it.
Yeah.
Let's just, what kind of life do we want to live? What kind of emotion do we want to experience?
Right. Yeah.
Let's stop keeping score. That's what this is about. It's about not.
Yeah. And a lot of relationships get into that keeping score. And sometimes even with our kids, it gets into that keeping score. And but that's why when you get to become a team, you realize that everybody brings their piece to that team. Right. And it's not about keeping score. It's about what do we get to contribute in. So
that's so true. And if I may add a real life, I guess, proof of this. And I know some people might still hold on to this piece of advice. You've probably heard, never go to bed angry. Have you heard that? Maybe for some couples this works. And good job if it works for you. I personally, for me, not good advice. No. And I remember when I was a morning news anchor, we would be in the newsroom sometimes before 4 a.m, and in the newsroom, you hear the police scanner. It's always going on. And I tell you, Cheryl, there were many domestic disturbance calls about that time in the morning. And my co-anchor would yell across the room to the police scanner as if the people could hear him. He would say, just go to bed.
Just go to bed. Stop beating each other up in the morning. It'll look better, right?
They're tired. And when you're tired, most people's judgment is really not very good. And then of course, if you add to that any type of alcohol or, anything like that, it can
get sober too, right? Yeah. If you're in the middle of it. Yeah.
And so for me in my life, I don't want to speak for everyone. In my life, it is better if I am rested and in a good state of mind to tackle difficult subjects.
Yeah. Because you get into a higher vibration and a higher energy and whatever. So yes, it's because when you're in that low, it is really difficult to sift through it when you're not. So I would tend to agree with you on that. Like at least step back, right, and allow yourself to get into a different mental place before you. Yeah, you need a mind shift, as one of my friends likes to say. It's a mind shift. You need it.
It is a mind shift, and you could say it another way. You could say drop victim thinking. I think human nature, just naturally, we tend to think the woe is me, how does this affect me? Or if we're blaming, it's usually because we're in a victim mindset.
Yeah.
When we decide to take responsibility of our attitude, man, things can change quickly.
Yep.
Yeah.
I do want to point out, and so we're in, and I knew this first show was probably going to run a little bit longer than our normal show. Yeah. Half hour, but that's all right. But we're fine. We are a little bit over what normally the show will be, which will be a half hour. But I knew this first one because we needed to because I really wanted to lay out these 4
Sorry,
gifts.
Cheryl, I should have known better. Whenever we talk on the phone, it's like,
that's because we're always in the energy of the solution and solving all of the world's problems. But anyway,
there right now.
Right now. But anyway, I just happened to look up, at our time. But so we've got. Well, I'll let you recap because you're really good at that. But
okay, I love it. And our brain loves repetition, right?
Right.
So number 1, this is 3 out of the 4 gifts. Okay. Number 1 is listening. Disconnect to connect. Disconnect from your worries of the day, and especially cell phones and everything like that. Okay. Number 2, respect. Another phrase for this is don't quack the duck. Don't shoot people down. Number 3, awareness. Live above the mark. Above the mark. That means we take responsibility for our attitude and our actions, what is in our control. And that'll keep us plenty busy without judging other people.
Yes.
We're humans. We've got a lot to work on. Okay. So what's number 4?
So the 4th gift is the gift of love. And that is the highest vibration. So that's where we want to be before we start solving all the problems. Right. But the gift of love and how we unlock that. And I can tell you there were so many conversations that we had, but it's to celebrate ourselves and others. One of our favorite quotes as a family that we used to sit down and share was that when you judge someone, you're not defining them, you're defining yourself. As judgmental, right? So we used to talk about that all the time. And I can tell you that's been such a profound thing in our lives in terms of, unless we've walked in someone else's shoes, how do we really know? And the reality too is that the world is a beautiful place, and we all bring amazing talents and skills. And, obviously if someone has bad intent, there's nothing there to celebrate, but most of the time people are out there just doing what they do, trying to make a difference, looking at it from their perspective. And we all bring this amazing piece to the puzzle of life. And so, recognize, I'm like, my sons were night and day, but I can see like the beauty that lies in each one of them in terms of what they get to contribute in this lifetime. And so learning to celebrate ourselves and others, and the learning to celebrate ourselves is so important, right? Because if we're not celebrating ourselves, how in, the Lord's name, are we ever going to get out there and celebrate somebody else? So, so it's all about, I think, stepping into that space and stepping out of judgment. And, we talked about fear versus love, and you can't, when you're on a path, you can't walk in fear and love at the same time. You have to make a conscious choice. And when you celebrate others, you're making the choice to walk in love. And they don't, right now in this country more than ever before, we all need to learn how to celebrate one another, learn to agree to disagree, and still at the end of the day, recognize that we are all humans here having this amazing experience together. And that if you really boiled it all back down to like, here's A and here's Z, we all want that journey, right? We all want the same thing. And so this one is also just like taps at my heart, because I look at the bullying issues that go on. What if we could just look at that person and say, hey, you know what? You're perfect the way that you are. You're perfect in your journey, and you're perfect for who you are. And if we could get there, like if we could get that happening, right, then we could literally open up a totally different dialogue, especially different than the one that seems to be happening right now in so many ways, right? So,
right. And I can't express how much I love this. I could go on and on. I know we don't have much time, but
we'll come back. We'll do it again. No, it's okay.
Right. We'll talk again. But this really is the key that kind of circles all the gifts together, because if you listen to someone, if you respect someone, if you are aware and present with them, that those are all forms of love.
Yes.
That all of these are telling your spouse, your child, your sibling, I love you. And my goodness, that's what the world needs so much of. And I love, we're saying this a lot, but I love the idea that there is enough for everyone, like an abundant mindset. Just because you just got, a dance trophy doesn't mean that I can't be a good dancer too. But, just because my friend got a promotion in his, business doesn't mean that I'm, chopped liver. Let's celebrate. And it's
celebrate. Yeah.
That whole thing. If I lift you, you lift me, we'll ascend together. And you and I, Cheryl, were talking recently. I think I didn't see it live, but the Miss Universe pageant.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
The final two contestants. It was Miss Jamaica and Miss Nigeria. And they're both just drop dead gorgeous, so glamorous. And the judge reads the winner. It's Miss Jamaica. But you know who made the headlines was Miss Nigeria, because she was so excited, happy, overjoyed that her friend, Miss Jamaica, won. It wasn't like, I'm trying to smile. She was genuinely so happy.
Yeah. And honestly, anyone watching this, if you haven't seen that clip, you need to go watch it, because if you turn the volume down on that clip, you would think the other person, you would think that, she won it, because she was literally in just a state of complete celebration about her friend getting this on. And that's what that's what we need to be. We need to celebrate everyone because it all builds to the energy, and it all comes back around, and and you would want somebody to do that for you.
You would. You don't have to dampen your light. Oh, look.
Oh,
my light really did it. Look, I'm turning green. I don't want to do that. Stay bright and fresh.
Oh, that's funny.
Anyway,
it's a sign. Anyway,
exactly.
So anyway, those are the 4 gifts. And, if anyone does want it, I have a little mini book. You can go to my website, unstoppableconnections.com, and you can download it for free if you're interested in doing that.
Wait. So it's unstoppableconnections.com. And if people go there, they can do what?
It's on the front page. Yeah, I'm talking too fast now. It's on the front page. And if you just scroll down, there's a place where you can just download the free mini book. And it was actually it was the mini book I submitted when I was actually awarded the next best brilliant idea for humanity.
Oh, I forgot to mention that.
I did the intro. We're good. But that award was really one of those defining moments for me too, and it pushed out a lot of information, and I really got the message out there. And so, but that book was the submission for that as well. And it's just a short read, but it really does cover the 4 gifts a little bit more. Kind of a recap of what we talked about today. But as we move forward, every show I do is going to bring some of that element in. Of course, it's about the other people, but I think that they're the foundation of what I want to share. So.
Exactly. Okay. So everyone likes something free, especially something free and really, really valuable. Mm-hmm. Which this book is. And so Cheryl, if they go to unstoppableconnections.com right now, how soon can they access the book?
Well, assuming that all my my technology skills were in place that day.
They are. I'm sure
it should be an immediate download.
So you can get it right away. I highly encourage everyone to do it. It is free, folks. And these 4 gifts can change your life and your family's life.
Yeah. What I love about the 4 gifts is that there's so much depth to them when you really start talking about them, just as we did. But in reality, you could literally grasp onto these enough to share them with your family tonight. And that's what I really get excited about, because I could see a family literally taking these and having a conversation tonight about.
Yeah. That's what I'm going to do, because our night is either Sunday night or Monday night to kind of discuss the week and, get together and talk about that. So yes, I'm going to do it.
Good.
Awesome. So unstoppableconnections.com.
Yeah. Yeah. So, anyway, that is our show. And so, but I want to end on one last thing, because, and this will be really quick, but every show I want to end with a dot, which a dot is a drop of thought. And so it's kind of like our little pearl of wisdom that we want to share at the end of the show. So I'm going to share 2 today. They're really short, but Sunny, I wanted to know, do you have a dot that you
wanted? Oh my goodness. Do I ever? Okay. So I was telling Cheryl, this, out of any quote I've ever read, has had the biggest impact. And yes, it is from Chicken Soup for the Soul. Well, actually, it was collected into that lovely book back in the 90s. Me as a teenager, I'm reading on the couch of my living room, feeling frankly a little bit sad. And I was reading this by Mother Teresa, one of my heroes. And she said this, and it's about how we should show up in the world, how we can show up and treat other people. She said, "Let no one ever come to you without leaving better and happier. Be the living expression of God's kindness. Kindness in your face, kindness in your eyes, kindness in your smile." And that, I know this sounds kind of funny, I felt like that gave me permission to be cheerful, to be kind, to reach out to people, and just try to use my presence as a gift to help just share love. And have I always succeeded? No, but I really do try. I can honestly say I try to do that. I try to share love. The world has enough heaviness. I love the idea of being a light and helping lift other people.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Well, and it's going to fit right in with mine, in a way. But my first dot, which is really for this particular episode of the show, or the very first show, was to say that ripples don't flow in; they flow out. And that if we really want to see change in our world, that it starts in our own homes, with our own families, around our own kitchen tables, first and foremost. And so while the show is going to bring amazing content to families, and that's what that's the heartbeat, is to create all this, like, so you can have these conversations. And we're going to talk about everything from, the 5 conversations you should have before you get the dog to, the gifts of autism. It's going to be all, fun stuff, tough stuff, and everything in between. So that was first and foremost. But the second thing, and I think maybe it is the bigger thing, is that when we change how we act in our own homes with our own families, and we create that connection that's so powerful and so strong, that's how we change the world, because ripples flow out. Nature demands it, right? So that's my first, that ripples don't flow in, they flow out. And if we want to see that change, it starts with us. And then to end on the last thing, which brings home everything you just said beautifully, is honestly that in a world where we can be anything, be kind.
Love that.
Yeah. And I plan to end every show with that, because that's the heart that I want to put out there, is that in a world where we can be anything, let's just be kind to one another. So anyway, thank you.
World-changing advice right there.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for coming on and being a part of what for me feels like the next defining, huge moment in this journey. And, it was so fun sharing with you. And because I know you have the heartbeat for this too. You have a family, you understood it. And so anyway, your beautiful spirit in the middle of this was just perfect.
Oh my goodness. Those are such kind words. Thank you. I can honestly say I feel so privileged to help your message reach as many ears as possible. It is a joy for me. And I almost feel a positive urgency about it. I feel like your message needs to get to so many people. And so I'm so—
and that's the plan.
That's the plan. Thank you for acting on this, Cheryl.
Yeah.
Thank you for acting on this and creating the book and the program. And I can't wait to listen to your next show, and the next and the next and the next, and share it with my friends and everyone on social media. I'm so excited.
Thank you, Sunny. Thank you. All right. Bye, everyone. For anyone who's here, this is all new to me, so I didn't pull in comments because, oh dear God, tech stuff in me, like I'm learning it all. But anyway, I see there are comments, and I thank everyone who took the time to be here and to share with us, and who left comments. So thank you. And again, thanks to Aaron and Sunny. Thank you. And we'll see you next time. So
my pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.